that activity number 5 there is a learning style inventory. So if I click on that, you're going to see it just opens up here and is a PDF version of an activity you can try if you like. You can go through here and respond to these questions, and near the bottom you're going to see that there's a scoring chart and an explanation for what that means. So if your learning preference or style is a particular one, perhaps you might teach in a particular way. And I want you to think about how your teaching is affected, or your instructional style is affected by your learning style or your learning set of preferences. Let's go back here to the inventory. Once you've looked at this inventory and thought a little bit about those items, what I want you to do is flip over to your next worksheet page, which is page 8. You're going to see there are some series of learning preferences there and models. This goes along with what we were discussing before. Perhaps you situate yourself in some of those. Give them some thought. Maybe you'll circle the ones that you think are best suited to how you learn. And then on page 9, the top question is the one we're going to look at here. These, based on our examination of your instructional style, learning preferences, these are important questions I think we should consider. First one is, what are your learning preferences? Perhaps you can write some of those down in this section. And I want you to think about the next question. What might this tell you about how you facilitate learning, what your instructional approach is? So think a little bit about your own preferences here. Question 3, I should probably point with the pointer, not my finger. Think about your learning preferences and how these connect with your instructional style. So if you, for instance, were somebody that learns by listening, right, an auditory learner, and this works for you quite a bit, might that affect or bias the way that you approach your teaching? Do you think perhaps that might have you do a little bit more lecturing as a result of that being the style that worked best for you? Not sure. I think it's worth considering what impact that might have. And so that leads us to the fourth question. What types of learning strategies must I be mindful of including? So for instance, if you're not somebody that likes simulation or role player at all, or that doesn't have anything to do with your learning preferences, perhaps you want to consider seeing that you include some of that a little bit as well. So the bottom line is, share your response in the discussion board activity in Module 4. So this is an opportunity for you to think a little bit about this. Use the worksheet as a draft for you to respond to these questions. And then when we go back to Blackboard here, I want you to think about responding to this. I'm just going to go back to the main page here. When we scroll down, I think it's number 6, sorry. It says discussion board activity, instructional style. So I want you to share your response here in a very short paragraph with the class here. So you'll see when you come into the discussion board activity, much like we did with our introductory profiles, I want you to create a thread, and when you open that, you see you'll have the questions right there in front of you, and then you'll have an opportunity to type your message here. Perhaps in the subject you could just write your name, and then we'll go from there. A short paragraph just to get an idea for you to think a little bit more about the connection between your learning preferences and your instructional style. Once you've done that, you can come back to the video. I want to just do a little recap on this because I think this is sort of the point we're trying to get at. I think it's important to vary our methods of instruction. We try to have individual activities where people can reflect. We want to have social activities where we can interact with others. Some things are reading based, some things are visual, some things are auditory, and many other options as well. So I think keeping our things varied, kind of like in the comic here, are quite important. Now, for the last piece that we wanted to look at, I want to think a little bit about this question. concerns about facilitating, right? Facilitating learning. Sometimes, particularly, I guess, if we've not had much experience with that, it can be kind of anxiety driving, I guess, if that's a term. We can be fearful of a few things. I want you to, in the last quadrant on the page 9 of our worksheets, there's a little space for that. I want you to list as many facilitation related concerns as come to mind. Um, Now I've written in the worksheet says concerns regarding the facilitation of groups here, but I mean a course, a class, right? What things come to mind? What are you frightened or scared about in that context? I'm going to give you a moment here to complete that. We'll pause here and we'll come right back. All right. The most common ones, based on a study that looked at this more specifically, 12 of them emerged, particularly from novice instructors, facilitators. In this case, they were trainers. And we'll look at that context in a minute. But these are the ones that emerged, right? General fear of getting in front of an audience, or credibility, that they felt the participants in the class wouldn't see them as credible. Um, they didn't have enough personal experiences to share in the context of their teaching. They'd encounter challenging people in the classroom, difficult learners, that people wouldn't participate if they were asked to do stuff in groups. The pacing and the timing might be off, to be too fast, too slow. Adjusting instruction based on the needs of learners, being able to assess that, not being able to answer any questions. There was a fear or concern related to that. Being able to provide timely and reasonable feedback that will adjust learning to a certain extent, connects a little bit with 7 a little bit. Number 10, using effective media and technology in the context of their training. 11 was openings and closing, using maybe an icebreaker, or wrapping stuff up effectively at the end of a learning event. And dependence on notes was number 12, reading the slides or one's lesson plan or notes when teaching. So these are 12 of the most common concerns. And I think it's worth taking a moment and reading a little bit more about these. And that's number 7, reading D, I believe, here in our on our Blackboard page. So if we just zoom back here, I'm just going to do back, and you're going to see as we go down, we did our discussion board activity. The bottom one here is training, delivery, problems, solutions. And so this is an interesting little piece that was put together for trainers more specifically, but I think it has a bit of relevance. After you read the context here, it's not long, you'll see that they have an appendix that is quite useful, actually. It says here, expert solutions to the 12 most common training delivery problems of novice trainers. And so these are the 12 that we just looked at, and they have some suggestions for each of those 12 issues, perhaps of use and perhaps interesting for us to look at. So certainly give that a read, take a look. Coming back to our presentation here, we're going to do a little summary here. And these are the 3 points that I'm hoping that you remember at the end of this particular module video, I should say. The first one is consider your learning and training style, right? Is there a bias by virtue of the way that you learn or you prefer to learn to the way that you teach and you instruct students? What might that be, if there is one? If not, well, good to give it some thought anyway. 2 is varying your instruction, making sure that you've got numerous different ways that you're reaching your students, the broad variety of students that you have in your course who may have different preferences given the context of the course. And the third one is remember that young adults need relevant, applicable, and collaborative learning based on past experiences. And these are some of the items that we've spoke a little bit about earlier in this course, but that are coming back here in the context of this module. And the last message that I want to leave you with is that there's no right or wrong instructional style. I think we all have our own. We're not going left or right like this image. I think we all kind of go through the field and trailblaze and create our own way, because I think the most important thing is to be authentic to ourselves. We don't want to just see somebody else's instructional style and just adopt that one. We're authentic to ourselves based on the context and needs of our students. So I think that's an important message to take with us as well. So let's leave it at that for this particular video. We've worked through our worksheets and the readings and exercises in the Blackboard space here. This is the first video. I'm going to have a video 2 on lesson planning that will help us a little bit with our micro teaching, and then a last very short video explaining the micro teaching as well. So hopefully you're having a great week, and I really look forward to seeing you all on the 30th of October.